All right, let me help you to figure out what's happening on this slide. As you probably guessed, Olga is me talking here. And today I'll tell you all the secrets of how Shopify accelerates developers with cloud development environments. But first, to get us on the same page, let's get a bit of a context here. What is even Shopify? I hope all of you know what is Shopify, but in case you forgot, I will remind you. Shopify is a commerce platform that lets you start, grow, and manage a business. Shopify powers millions of businesses in more than 175 countries. The main mission of Shopify is to make commerce better for everyone. So, how do we make commerce better for everyone? What's happening behind the scenes of the Shopify success? As you can imagine, we have a big team that approaches that mission differently. Most intuitive team you're thinking about is a team of developers who come up with design, build new features, make sure they bring value to our users, and make sure there are no bugs. We also have a team of data scientists who, analyze data, figure out directions, provide useful insights for users. There are other teams too, but my favorite team is developer acceleration. I'm a little bit biased here when I chose it as my favorite team, and that is because I'm part of this team. Actually, I like all the teams at Shopify because each one of them is important for the main mission. And in case you forgot, the main mission is make commerce better for everyone. But let's get back to developer acceleration. What does it even mean to accelerate developers? I want us to be on the same page here as well. So, developer acceleration has its own goals. We aim to maximize productivity of our developers by providing necessary tooling to replace slow processes. We hope that more productive developer will make bigger impact. Developer acceleration team tries to remove unnecessary complication by adding abstractions that simplify developers' lives and lets them focus on the main mission. Environments team, and I'm part of it, is working on providing development environments, it can be local or cloud environments, to accelerate code, build, test loop. So, how do we accelerate our developers? To get a better picture of our journey into cloud development environments world, let us quickly recap what was there before cloud development. There is not much environment team was responsible for at the time. All we had was a dev tool. But let's not get fooled here. It wasn't just a little tool that did not much. It was an amazing tool that was standardizing small set of common tasks across all projects at Shopify. To show you how intuitive this tool is, let's imagine it's your first week at Shopify and you got an important task to fix something on a very secret repository. You don't know what's inside of this repo yet, but you know that the first thing you need to do is clone it, and there's not much logic behind it. It just clones it from GitHub. It gives you right away a prompt saying that you can run DevOps to install everything you need for the project, and let's do that. Here we go. So we can see it installed all the dependencies, copied all the secrets needed. Of course, for big projects, there will be lots and lots of steps to set up the environment. And then we want to run this project, so we will run dev server or devs. Oh, here we go. Here we found out that it actually is a Rails environment. All right. Let's say we did our changes, I don't know, tested things, and we want to run tests. It's as easy as dev test. And Here we go, everything is done. Not even knowing the application, we were able to run server, run tests. This consistency and ease of use of commands between projects helps developers to work faster and not spend time trying to figure out commands for different programming languages for different projects. All right, let's stop here for a second and reflect. So far, we know that DevTool is awesome, but with the complexities of the projects, we've got some problems. For example, resources problem. We were started to run out of memory. Our MacBook fans were spinning like crazy trying to run the tests, which actually wasn't a bad thing during winter in Canada because it was creating extra heat. Another problem was reviewing process. We all know this happy feeling when we are ready to help our teammates to get a feature released and our friends asking us to review the PR and we're like, yes, sure. And then we are getting a list of complicated steps how to set up the environment. And let's say we go through all the steps. The worst is after that, you end up with a very messed up environment. It takes time to recover from that mess. Sometimes it takes time not only of the developer, but also developer acceleration team to figure out how to bring the state of the environment in a workable state for the developer. So at some point we asked ourselves, how can we accelerate our developers? What do we need? We knew we needed changes for our environment. We wanted something with enough resources, CPU or memory, something that was easy to reproduce, to be able to recreate environment for ourselves or teammates, isolated, so one messed up environment doesn't affect your local environment or your environment, shareable, to be able to collaborate. And actually the rest can be taken from, like, just go to Gitpod website and see what they promise with their environments. We needed all of that. So how to accelerate developers? Finally, we've got two cloud development environments. Our first release was called Spin. It was a container in the cloud with source code of our main repo and some essential tools. It may look like an easy transition, but believe me, it wasn't. We experimented with different ways to get this container. We had it locally, we had it on VMs, we had it in Kubernetes pods. Container itself was changing multiple times. We had one container, then container. It was many different ways we tried. So then we gave this container to our users, thinking that we solved the problem, but we quickly realized that teams need more than just one repo running. So we tried to onboard the next one very important repo, which actually was complicated the solution quite a lot because now we had to introduce communication between these containers. And eventually we figured it out and we created an environment with two pods running in Kubernetes, and Kubernetes was the one orchestrating it. However, again, we gave it to our users. We realized that teams operate in a way more complicated setup. So we ended up with a setup that looked like this. Imagine that 10, 12 pods associated with your environment. So while trying to figure out resources needed for pods, we introduced lots of instability at that time, and that caused developers learn about how are these environments set up and how our project works, how our spin works. Instead of accelerating our developers, we actually created more obstacles for them. So it was, again, time to analyze what we created, get to the user's feedback and see what we can do. So we found out that it was very difficult to onboard new projects. Users had to learn how our infrastructure works, all these connections that existed between repositories. Instead of navigating within one laptop, developers had to manage 10, 12 interconnected pods. And also we realized that the context between repos was lost. We realized that repos are not just independent. When they're combined, they're expected to behave like one big component. So we asked ourselves, how can we accelerate developers? Again, it's not a linear process, and sometimes multiple versions were out there and users were trying that. So first of all, we analyzed connection between repos, and we realized that teams work not in just a set of repos, but more like a constellation. Constellation has additional context attached, additional dependencies, and itself behaves like an application. Secondly, we decided to bring back idea of a laptop in the cloud and assemble all the constellation on one machine. We've also added and improved tooling within the spin. Some of the tools were internal, for example, this infer configuration tool that would detect type of repository and would initialize specific components based on what was inferred. This drastically simplified onboarding of repositories and improved our coverage of projects, and also increased number of developers working on Spin. We've added also some visible tools for users, some built-in analysis, ways to preserve data between instances. Our users were able to import some of the data, introduced easier way to update to more recent code. Actually, instead of talking about it, why don't I show you what we've done? Why don't you show how things work? So to create an environment, you just spin up and the name of the constellation you're trying to use. Not to show too many secrets, I created a constellation for you. So you can see it's already creating there with a random name. You can imagine we can name it as we want. Even though it's still creating, we can already shell in and we can see what's happening with the instance. And right now we're waiting for this instance to become available. And here we go, it's already done. It's set up my dot files, so yeah, we can do that. We can also open it in the browser, choose the instance we have, and here we can see the landing page for the environment. We can see statuses of all the repos inside. We can see URLs that are configurable, like some other quick links to other places. We can go and start coding in VS Code. It's as simple as this. So Spin Code will open VS Code for you with your project, and you can see again your services, your repos, and the states of each repo. We can restart all the projects, and we can see some metrics, what's happening with our laptop in the cloud. Of course, here we will not see much because we just started this instance. CPU usage, some data that can help to maybe configure instance. So we can run some git commands, everything is ready. Once we're done with working with it, we can also destroy an instance, and it's gone. You can check that it's gone. Destroying instance is not necessary at the moment. We have tools that detect that there is nothing happening on user's instance, and we first suspend the instance and then later we delete it for the users, so users doesn't have to remember to delete it. Hopefully you like the demo, and this is what our users use, our developers use every day. these days. Of course, it was also time to add some optimizations. We introduced so-called snapshots that represented a data layer that had all non-user specific setup. For example, dependencies, source code, database creation, seeds running was all offloaded to a snapshot process. Then the disk was used as a read-only layer for user instances, and actual spin-up was reduced from 1-2 hours to maybe no more than 5 minutes. We were also working hard on the hiding infrastructure, and users now don't even know if their instances are we are running on pods, virtual machines. They don't need to know the details. We also were able to migrate users from one cluster to another without them notice. We also, with increased usage, we had to look into efficient usage of cloud resources. So lots of work was done in optimizing the cost of the project. So of course, current solution is not ideal, and there are still problems. For example, some of the problems are boot times are slow, so we're looking into, again, making snapshots better, maybe offload more of the processes to snapshot process. Another problem we are facing is that our environments became stale pretty fast, so we need more tools to help developers to realign with newest versions of Constellations. And of course, we are still asking, how can we accelerate our developers? And we are already working on Isospin 2, new version of Isospin. Some of the changes in Isospin 2, we are actually moving dev tool inside spin tool. We realized that within spin environment, we reinvented dev tool, and why not to move dev inside spin, and of course, like add extra stuff that needed for cloud development. We also extracted our infer config tool in a separate tool that generates configurations for dev that can be used now inside the spin. We're also looking into hybrid environments to allow smooth communication between simple local repos with, let's say, core Constellation in the cloud. There are lots of lessons we learned going through this adventure of getting cloud environments in front of our users. The biggest lesson learned was never to forget the main goal, and in our case, it was accelerate developers. We would quite often chase a cool solution and forget about usability of it. Early feedback is very valuable. We try now to involve users as early as possible. That help us to abandon directions that users had troubles to adapt to and figure out new requirements. Also simplify, add consistent tools and less complicated solutions. Quite funny how we started with DevTool and ended with it, of course, with extra capabilities for it. It wasn't an obvious path for us at the beginning, but now it feels very trivial that that's the direction we had to take. Thank you so much for going through this, and if you want to share, please let me know. How do you accelerate your developers? You can reach out. Here are the ways to connect.